Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Garwood and Deputy Cabral. That the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of October 18th, 2023 come to order at 6:34 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Please join me in rise in the singing of the national anthem. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, through patriot love, in all sons come there. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, thou true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And seeing none, we will now move on to question period. Clerk Ainsworth, have any submissions been received?
Thank you. There has been one submission received from Julie Scanlon of 14484 Victoria Road in Elmvale regarding item 7.1 draft gravel road conversion policy. And they state, I have a question regarding the draft policy above. If this policy is enacted, how it would affect smaller but increasingly populated roads like Victoria Road getting paved. I believe Victoria Road was included in a previous council budget, but was removed prior to completion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. CEO Schmidt, is there an opportunity to have staff reach back out to the individual directly with the answer to that, or provide an answer this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. The draft conversion policy is on the agenda tonight, and should council wish to have staff speak to that item at that time, I believe we're prepared to do so.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any members of the public that would wish to pose a question during question period? Yes, it is. Yes, please come forward. We're going to ask that you pull both mics as close as you possibly can and state your name and address for us, please. And you can have a seat there.
John Spring, 2438 County Road 92, Elmvale, Ontario. I'm here tonight because of the gravel road conversion policy that is going to be presented to you this evening. As it stands now, there is no gravel roads in Springwater Township that'll get hard top. This will, in effect, end hard topping gravel roads. As it is now, in some of the roads in some of the towns and villages that have been paved or resurfaced, they themselves do not get 300 cars a day. In fact, I doubt if they get 200 cars per day. And so the criteria of using 300 cars for a country road is unreasonable. It is unfair to the taxpayers in rural areas to have gravel roads when they are paying the same amount of property tax as anyone who has a hard top road. They should expect to get a hard top road when the budget will allow it. The fact that this policy is coming to council in its present form is very, very troubling. What should be coming to the council is a policy outlining how the roads are going to get paved, the gravel roads are going to get paved in this township in a reasonable amount of time without putting us in a lot of debt. I don't even think that this policy in its present form should be considered by you. I think that you should go back and ask them to bring a policy forward to show that we are going to get these roads in Springwater Township paved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we can move on to item 6, which is our minutes. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes, please? I have Councillors Thompson and Garwood, that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. The minutes of the special meeting of council of October 4th, 2023, and the minutes of our regular meeting of October 4th, 2023. Are there any questions on these minutes, council? And seeing none, all those in favor, and that has carried. We are now moving on to a deferred item, which is our gravel road conversion policy. May I have a mover and seconder to have this item on the floor? Councillors Garwood and Deputy Cabral, that the report from the manager of roads fleet and regarding the draft gravel road conversion policy dated September 20th, 2023 be received, and that subject to comments received from council, the policy be finalized and presented to council for approval at a subsequent meeting. At this time, we can have questions from council. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I appreciate the floor here, and I wanted to thank Mr. Spring for coming out this evening and asking the question. I'm glad he asked it. I think we're almost on the same page here in regards to the policy forward. I understand tonight we're not voting on a policy, but we're providing our comments and feedback. So when I read through the draft gravel road conversion policy, and I think conversion is an important word to highlight there, I have on my screen, I don't see the policy in its current form as one that is meant for conversions. I see it more restrictive than anything. When I think about the current inventory of roads that are currently gravel within our municipality, I think it would be difficult to see any of those roads actually meeting the criteria that has been outlined. So that's my first piece. My second piece on this is, again, to what Mr. Springen noted, our residents are paying the same tax whether they live in Elmvale or they live on a concession road right outside of town. So that is a concern for me. I do see a benefit in converting some of our roads, understanding not every road needs to be converted. I grew up on a dead end concession road in Springwater, so I know not everyone needs a conversion, but I do have a couple concerns and questions that I would like taken away from today. My first one is, I would like to know if we do have a current inventory of roads that are in gravel form that could be converted. So a list of all gravel roads. And then second to that, I'm not expecting the information tonight, nor am I putting staff on the spot, but I would like to know the cost to convert a single kilometer of gravel road to hardtop. So I think that would be useful information for us to have around the table and for us to be able to make decisions down the road when a policy comes forward. When I think about a policy, again, I look at the draft policy right there, and I indicates a petition is received from residents under the Local Improvement Act and approved by council in accordance with the act. I have concern that residents would have to come forward and petition to see their road converted. Of course, I believe in resident feedback and hearing from our residents, and when they come to us, we bring these things to the council table and we advocate. But again, I have concern that that would be something in place that a resident would have to, or it would be an option for them to have to petition to see this come forward. I have a lot of questions around that. I'm not going to ask them all tonight. I have other points to make as well, and I'll free up the floor so I'm not talking for 5 minutes straight, but those are my initial first comments.
I have Councillor Alexander and then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Thank you to both Mr. Spring and Mrs. Scanlon for sending in their comments. I think they're both very valid, and I also echo Councillor Garwood's concerns. The proposed policy, mainly the priority index for the gravel road conversion, in my mind is going to make it virtually impossible for the majority of our rural residential roads to meet this criteria. Residents of Springwater who live on these gravel roads pay the same taxes has been noted as everyone else, yet they're not getting the benefit of a paved road. Further to that, the money the township spends to maintain the gravel roads, sometimes multiple times even per season, helps offset the initial cost of paving them. So I think all of that needs to be considered. I feel the criteria laid out in the draft policy is suited towards a larger city. Springwater is a rural municipality that is a mix of residential and agricultural. All of our taxpayers deserve to be considered for gravel conversion. I do not feel that this policy does this, and in fact, I feel it ties council's hands, so I cannot support it.
Counselor Thompson?
Through the chair to, I'm not sure who can answer this question. So we've talked about taxes that residents pay the same taxes, whether they live on a gravel road or on a paved road. And my understanding is taxes are paid based on property values. And a property value would be less on a gravel road based than it would be a paved road. So am I correct in assuming that, that's how impact, so someone that does live on a gravel road because of their property value would pay less?
Can you go to Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Councillor Thompson. I can start, and then if perhaps CAO Schmidt has anything to add, I would offer that up as well. So MPAC does do the assessment. Unfortunately, the assessment criteria is not necessarily known by township staff. I'm not sure if gravel versus a hardtop would have an impact on the assessment. I know it is based on value of market value of other properties, but at the current state, assessment has not been updated by MPAC since 2016. So at this point in time, I'd say perhaps everyone is paying less than what they should be. Thank you.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I actually, previous council went back and looked at a number of things. There used to be a 6-year capital plan in 2018. It got switched to a 10-year capital plan in 2019. There were gravel road conversions in the 6-year capital plan that were disappeared, for lack of a better term, from the 10-year capital plan. What I can tell you is that previous council did move forward with a couple, 2 or 3, I think it was 3, gravel road to hardtop conversions. And I can tell you the experience on some of these gravel roads where it's not the people who live on the road that are driving up and down the road. It's people who are going from point A to point B. These are transit corridors. These are roadways for farmers to take their equipment back and forth, to bring their produce, their product to wherever it happens to have to go. But what I can tell you is we used to get a number of complaints about heavy trucks in Elmvale. A lot of noise in Elmvale, trucks failing to negotiate the corner from southbound 27 to 92 to head down to the beach. They'd often be kissing that lamppost right there on the corner, and it'd have to be repaired. One of the roads that did get converted was Floss Road 10 West, which goes all the way from Scarlet Road in the east all the way into Wasaga Beach, and it's a busy road. And at that time, indications were that it didn't meet the criteria. But I can tell you right now that a large percentage of the traffic that normally would flow through Elmvale on its way to the beach now goes down the 10th. It doesn't make everybody who lives on the 10th particularly happy, but what it does do is it alleviates the traffic going through Elmvale to the point where there's far fewer heavy trucks and far fewer people driving through there. And as time has progressed, I would hazard to say that the Floss Road 10 West is in the neighborhood of 300 to 500 cars per day right now. Rarely is there a time when there's not a vehicle on that stretch of roadway. If we had this policy in place at that time, none of those roads, including the one in Ward 2 and one in Ward 4, would have been paved over. Council previous had actually prioritized gravel to hardtop conversions, and I found that out based on my research. What this policy does is it sets a threshold for folks who live on rural roads that folks in the urban area don't deal with. There's a number of projects going on where dead-end streets are being repaved. Those dead-end streets really only serve to accommodate the people who live on them, which not a problem, and delivery trucks that might be delivering to them, but they're really not a transit route to go anywhere in particular. So I can't support the policy. The other point I wanted to point out is that council in and of itself did not ask for this report. And once again, it does place the burden on rural versus urban, and that's unfair. I think that the fact that when we do these conversions on some of our through roads that are being used to get from point A to point B, it actually enhances the ability for traffic to flow through. And I can recall back when we were talking about the 10th that it didn't qualify for DCs because it wasn't growth related. I can guarantee you that the next time the 10th is paved, it will definitely qualify for DCs because traffic has increased there 100-fold from what it used to be in 2019 when it was done. That would be the point that I would like to make. And I think it also takes this policy takes it out of the realm of residents seeking to better their own little community, to better their own road. And it's unfair that folks who have gravel roads, never have seen a piece of pavement, are still driving on the gravel roads. And it does cost substantially more money to maintain a gravel road than it does to maintain a paved stretch of roadway. So those are my comments. I don't support accepting the report or instituting the policy.
Thank you. I'll go to CAO Schmidt first for comments on DCs being used for road maintenance, and then I will go to Manager Ha. We did have a report in our last term outlining the costs associated with maintaining a gravel road, the conversion, and maybe we could just have that report recirculated, but if you are able to speak to the costs tonight, that would be great as well. CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coggan, through you to members of council. So just a couple of things to add on to Director Radigan's comments earlier. So I believe Councillor Thompson asked about property assessment and how taxes are calculated. So yes, it is based on a property's assessment, which is determined by MPAC. So we take that and then we multiply it by our tax rate, and that's the taxes that you pay or residents will pay. And just further to that, the factors that MPAC actually uses to determine assessment, there's 5 key factors. One being age of the building on the property or age of buildings on the property, total square footage of the living area, location of your property, size of your lot, quality of construction. And then they also have some other factors that can affect your property value as well, including primary structures, secondary structures, and so on and so forth. So those are the criteria that they use. So to say that, clearly that someone on a gravel road has a lower assessment than somebody on a rural road, I'm not in a position to say whether or not that's true or not. It could be in some cases, but in other cases, it could be the opposite. So again, don't want to really comment on that piece. The comment about DCs, and again, just to clarify, it's not necessarily based on the volume of traffic. It would be based on the development that's proposed in that area and the fact that if we are converting that road from, say, a current 2-lane roadway to a 4-lane roadway, then the incremental difference, so the 2 lanes that we're adding on to, could be considered growth and could be considered to be DC applicable. So just to clarify on that piece, and maybe I guess the last comment I'll say is on the policy. I think what staff were trying to do is there's been lots of conversations over the last number of years about gravel road conversions. And we were trying to bring forward a methodology, if you will, for council to consider as to how we go about determining which roads should be converted to potentially hardtop. At the end of the day, as you know, council determines levels of service, and that's really what we're talking about. So if council is not supportive of such a policy, we're in your hands.
Manager Ha.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Coughlin and the rest of council. Yes, the intent of the draft policy was to put something in front of council to get feedback from council and residents. I'm making notes. So that we had a format for moving forward with hardtopping gravel roads, because we do get requests from residents. And to your comment, Deputy Mayor, part part of the policy, obviously, we gathered data from other similar municipalities to come up with some of the ideas in this draft. One of the criteria for that was typically most other municipalities use 400 as a average daily traffic number. We lowered that to 3, noting Springwater's sort of makeup. And with this policy, that actually the 3 roads that we converted, Floss 10, Floss 6, and Grenville Road, would all actually meet the criteria under this policy.
Thank you, Manager Hall. Counselor Moore and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to CAO Schmidt. Or sorry, probably to Manager Hall. There was a roads needs study that we used to get that would sort of help us to determine come budget time even which roads were a priority and which ones weren't. Are you planning to use the roads needs study ongoing? Or is it helpful in creating your policy? Or what was your thought about what we've paid for those studies sort of every few years? So what was your thought around them?
Manager Hall.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Moore. Yes, we use road need studies. We're actually working our way through another road need study that will be presented to council later this fall. So that factor is included in all of the works we do with roads. So it helps us to prioritize what should come first and what should come next, and it includes gravel roads.
And before I do that, the comment about the cost associated per kilometer, is that information can be recirculated to council? That was just a question that was asked about the maintenance costs and perfect. Thank you. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a couple of points. One, there are actually in the capital plan right now, I know of one at least, gravel road conversion that does not meet the criteria. As a matter of fact, there's more than one there, and both of them are below the 300 vehicle threshold, yet they're already on the capital plan. One of them is Rainbow Valley Road. So I struggle with, on one hand, we've got gravel road conversions that are happening, and then we come forth with a policy that those ones actually were supposed to be done this year. We come forth with a policy that would literally say that they should be pulled back out. I think what the policy should be is everybody wants a hard top road. The folks who live on it, their cars are damaged, the paint gets chipped, they have to deal with dust, they have to deal with potholes, and township has to keep sending the grader out. They have to keep maintaining it every time there's potholes, and that happens every time it rains. So the idea isn't necessarily let's set criteria where we can not convert gravel to hard top. What we should be looking at is let's prioritize our gravel roads right now so that we can hard top them going forward. Perfect example would be Floss Road 8 West. There's one stretch there that's not paved. It runs between Crosland Road and Vigo. The other one would be Floss Road 6 West. There's a section there that's not paved. It really just breaks it up. So people that normally would use those roadways are reluctant to use them. That's why the traffic is low. If we pave them, it's kind of like the Field of Dreams. Pave them and they will come. And that's what happened on the 10th. So that's it. So really everyone does want a hard top road. So maybe the policy should be, here's our policy for paving hard top roads. We're going to prioritize our gravel roads right now. We're going to move forward, and every year we're going to hard top a few, because I can tell you there's some dead end roads that cost more money to pave than it costs to pave Floss Road 10 from County Road 29 to County Road 27. I think it was in the neighborhood of $200 and some odd thousand. And that was after the initial amount was a little bit lower than that. So really the policy should be geared towards that. I think we're doing a disservice to our rural residents. Mr. Spring has been here in the past, and he lives on a paved road. So it's not like Mr. Spring is here because he doesn't have a paved road. He does, but he recognizes that there's other folks who don't, and they're the ones that are paying for it in a multitude of different ways. Dust, damage to their cars, all that kind of stuff. And not only that, potholes, if they're deep enough, and someone does have a damage to their car, they can lay a claim against township. So there's also that aspect of it too, that paving a road actually reduces our liabilities in some cases.
Thank you. We've heard the comments from council here this evening. When the draft plan does come back to council, the original information report that went to our last council, I believe, I'm sure the numbers are a bit different in today's dollars, but it gives us an idea of what the costs are associated in that. Also understanding that we do have our asset management coordinator, and also with our infrastructure deficit gap. I think that is also a very important portion of the conversation that needs to happen. I think that it's a wholesome look at it, because if we do just go and pave every road, and I'm not suggesting we would do it tomorrow, it does have a lasting and long-term effect. And we do have an infrastructure deficit gap that we are trying to close as it is today. So when the report comes back, if it could be accompanied with those additional information for council, that would be great. So the Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a question to Clerk Ainsworth. Voting not to receive it would prevent it from becoming policy. Is that correct?
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. A vote against this motion now before council would mean that the policy be removed from the project list. It would not come back forward to council. Should council wish to see a policy come forward, but with different criteria, a different conditions and whatnot to it, I would highly recommend an amendment to the main motion to provide that direction to staff.
Thank you. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth, through Mayor Coughlin to you. That wouldn't necessarily have to be accomplished today. A member of council who wanted to propose a different set of criteria could make that motion at a later meeting through a notice of motion.
I believe it'd have to be if this does not move forward, it would be through a reconsideration at a later date.
This particular policy, correct me if I'm wrong, if it was a different set of criteria that actually looked at assessing the roads in order to pave them and prioritize them, wouldn't be quite the same as this particular policy, would it?
Manager Ha? If the direction from council is to, if we wanted, rather than a policy here to outline, so this does provide information on what it would take in order for a road to become converted. But if council is wishing to see what it would look like if we were going to attempt to convert the roads in Springwater, how many years it would take, what the financial impacts of that would be, and how we would prioritize the roads moving forward, I think is what I'm hearing from the table this evening. So it may not be this policy, it might be a gravel conversion plan. So if we defeat this, I don't want to waste any of our staff's time. So if we could defeat this motion and move forward with a gravel road conversion plan and the costs associated with that, I think that might be more what this council is looking for. Council, we do have the item before us now. It has been deferred. It is on the floor. So if we do not want to move forward with this policy, but in a different direction at another time, voting no would have this removed. So we do have a mover and seconder that the report from the General Manager Roads and Fleet regarding the draft gravel road conversion policy dated September 20th, 2023 be received, and that subject to comments received by council, the policy be finalized and presented to council for approval at a subsequent meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated. We are now moving on to our action reports. May I have a mover and seconder for the report regarding the mobile phone application? I have Councillors Alexander and Garwood that the report from the communications officer regarding the mobile phone application be received and that staff be directed to proceed with procuring the 14 Orange Info Grove mobile phone application in options. 1, the township register for the bronze level maintenance package of the cost of $2,750 plus HST annually. Option 2 is that the township register for the silver level maintenance package at the cost of $5,550 plus HST annually. And that option 3, that the township register for the gold level maintenance package at a cost of $11,000 plus HST annually. And at this time, I can open it up to the floor, or I can go back over to Manager Audette for comment. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I want to thank staff for the report. I did have a couple of questions and they were answered earlier in the week. I would tend to propose that we kind of look at the silver level. And the only reason I say that is it will get us in the door, get us moving on it. And my concern was if we were at the silver level, would we be penalized to move to the gold level at a different date when we wanted to integrate the app with our website and our service Springwater, for lack of a better term, when that came along. And the information I got was that there wouldn't be any penalty. We would simply move up to the next level. So I would be happy to support option number 2 to get us going, and look at option number 3 down the road when we've got some other ducks in a row and we can integrate this all together.
Thank you. I do have comments from Councillor Thompson and Garwood.
Through the chair to Officer Audette, again, thank you for the report. Just a question that I have. You've assigned staff time to each of these options as well. My concern is we've just added the new flyer. We're 5 months in on that, and I know that that's taken up some of your time. My question is, will this require new staffing, or are you able to manage this without adding any staff?
I'll go. Officer Odette.
Through your worship to the rest of council and Councillor Thompson, there would be a staffing component that would be required to run another communications platform. Although there are integrations with the website, there are certain parts that are not going to be fully integrated. It would require some additional staff time to manage the app. Additionally, things like looking at data and analytics of what's happening would require some time. It certainly wouldn't require a full position just for the app, but it would definitely need to be a consideration moving forward.
Yes. CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just to further comments, Officer Audette, council will be seeing a proposed position in the 2024 budget as it relates to communications. And of course, we're in your hands as to how you wish to proceed, but just to provide that update that you will be seeing that position requested.
Thank you. I am Councillor Garwood and Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. In reviewing the report, and again, I wanted to thank Officer Audette for the report. I also am in agreement with the silver level, so option number 2. I find the gold level does have some features that I think are beneficial to us, whether it be today or down the road. Specifically, the staging server, understanding in my day job working with implementing new technologies. Staging servers as we're launching something new is important so we can ensure that we have a excellent customer service experience for our users and for our residents. Also, the analytics piece at the gold level is also of interest to me, but Councillor Audette, I'm giving, there you go. Officer Audette clarified to me today as well that the silver level option does have analytics built into it in some aspect, which I think is going to be important for us as we launch this app to determine what features are most utilized by our residents. So I agree with the Deputy Mayor with the silver level option.
So we do have that in front of us, and Deputy did have his hand up, but I had that moved by Deputy Cabral and seconded by Councillor Garwood. So we do have option 2 on the floor. Further comment?
Yep, just a quick comment. I mean, it'd be nice to get it going and roll it out. I think it will also provide us opportunity at that time to wean ourselves off of media publication in print, instead of maybe every month or whatever, direct mailer. We could do one every quarter, but make it more substantial because it costs the same amount of money, whether it's 1 page or 5 pages. So that's how I envision us going forward with this, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Council, any further questions? We do have option 2 on the floor. And seeing none, option 2, that the township register for the silver level maintenance package at the cost of $5,500 plus HST annually. All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to number 9, our action reports, and I will have a mover and seconder to have the reports on the floor. Once it is on the floor, we can pull items. So may I have a mover and seconder for the action reports, please? I have Councillor Moore and Councillor Garwood that action reports 9.2 through 9.8 be received, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved. We have 9.2, the NVCA MOU. We have 9.3, the 2024 council meeting schedule. 9.4, the council bursary program. 9.5, our group benefits renewal. 9.6, our smart network solutions. 9.7, our voluntary community contribution agreement, and 9.8 is Midhurst Heights. Council, at this time, are there any to be pulled for redirection? Councillor Moore?
9.2, 9.4.
And 9.7. So council, at this time, I do have 9.2 NVCA, 9.4 school bursary program, and 9.7 the voluntary community contribution agreement. So we have those three being pulled. Any others, council? Okay. So we now have before us, we have action reports 9.3, 9.5, 9.6, and 9.8 with 9.2 and 9.7, sorry, to be dealt with separately. All in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving back to 9.2. It's the NVCA Memorandum of Understanding pulled by Councillor Moore. I need a seconder for that, please. I have Councillor Alexander. I have that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the NVCA Memorandum of Understanding dated October 18th, 2023 be received, and that Council directs the Mayor and Clerk to execute the required agreements in order for the NVCA to provide a Category 2 and 3 program services for the township. I have been moved and seconded. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to CAO Schmidt. When Mr. Hebner was here and he was speaking about the Category 3 programs, and I read this report, it looks like the Category 3 would be the $26,450 if we adopt all of the components of those Category 3. I read the response though from your email, and those items are already part of the Category 1 and Category 2. I just need you to clarify for me what it would cost for the Fort Willow Festival to continue. I couldn't tell if it was $1,500 or if it was $20,000. Thank you.
And thank you, CAO Schmidt, for that additional information today. And before I do, I think with Category 2 and 3, the NVCA didn't separate them for us. They provided us with a 2 and 3 together. And I will confirm with CAO Schmidt if we are able to select individual items from categories 2 or 3, or if we want one of those items, we are required to pay for all.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Moore. Sorry, just trying to process this. So the first question, I guess, is that the Category 2, my understanding is, are not currently, there's no Category 2 programs and services provided to the township at this stage. It's just essentially the Category 1, which are the mandatory. We have to essentially adopt those, if you will. As for Category 3, my understanding is NVCA has provided a list that I've provided to you in that email. And my understanding is council does not have to entertain all of those. It's kind of an a la carte, if you wish. You get to choose which ones, and based on that, a cost apportionment agreement would need to be entered into between the NVCA and the township. So you're not obligated to enter into all of those services for that 26,000 and change. You can select which ones that you would wish to entertain. The NVCA has presented it as all encompassing, but my understanding is you get to determine which programs or services in Category 3. Should you wish to entertain any, you get to decide on that.
Can I follow on?
Thank you. And thank you for the explanation, because it is confusing. When I look at the breakout for forestry, stewardship, lands, watershed science, that to me is all Category 1. It seems ish. It's just, it's overlapping. So if I take away just the Fort Willow piece, how does it affect all of those other components, the forestry piece and the stewardship piece? Because for me, that was always Category 1.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Council Moore. So the information provided to me from the MVC is that, yes, some of the category 3 are somewhat dependent on category 1, if you will. But I believe some of those category 1, again, those category 1 services are mandated to be provided. So I don't profess to be an expert by any means in this, and I agree it is a little confusing. My understanding is that if council wishes to only proceed with the Festival of Fort Willow, based on the information provided to us, it's around $2,200 extra is what they've indicated here. That being said, I don't want to say that it's only $2,200. I think if council gives direction to only entertain that program or service for category 3, staff would need to go back and have a conversation with the MVCA and determine what the actual costs are.
And before I do move on to, when I was looking at the email that came through, and it indicated that it could be potentially $10,000 for the Festival of Fort Willow. And if you take that and divide it by the 18 watersheds, that brings us down to about a $555 contribution from our municipality. And I know I could do the math wrong, because if only 2 of the 18 sign on, then the cost is appropriated to the remainers, or those that do sign on. When I look at the Festival of Fort Willow, it's a significant event within the township, much like our Maple Syrup Festival and much like our Autumn Fest and our Elmvale Fall Fair. The municipality does contribute financially to those events, and more so than the $500. So I think that there are opportunities for our municipality, whether it's in kind with our staff who are very involved, and it could be a financial contribution, which is already more than we could do. Even more. What I'm saying, I think we do 5,000 a year for the Maple Syrup Festival. I'm throwing numbers out here. I could be wrong, but I do think it is at that significant level. So if we don't engage with the NVCA and for the Festival of Fort Willow, there's still opportunity for us as a council to support the Festival of Fort Willow aside from the NVCA is what I'm suggesting. I had Councillor Garwood and then Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So speaking onto your point, actually, and my point's very similar, I guess my clarification would be, and maybe I'll direct this to CAO Schmidt, is in theory, if we were to go with option 3 and we were to absorb the cost, I think that total was $26,464. I think that's what it said in the report. That is with a cost sharing agreement, because there's 17 other member municipalities that are a part of the MVCA. So if we were to sign on for all of those services, but 17 other municipalities were not to sign on, are we then responsible for the entire portion of, because 26,000 would be our portion. So are we then responsible for $476,352? Because that's what the total would be of that entire share, the 26,000 times the other 17 municipalities. So that's my concern when we're already paying the MVCA, $225,000. And I've been very clear about my opinion on the MVCA, but some clarification would be appreciated.
CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Councillor Garwood. Councillor Garwood, I don't know if it would be that exact figure as you mentioned, but I believe that's the kind of the basis of what they're suggesting here is, again, they provided what they're proposing, assuming that everybody's going to join on. But to your point, if there are individuals, and I'll tell you right now, based on, I did actually have a conversation with probably 8 or 9 of our partners in the watershed, because we had some concerns over this. Some of them are not signing on. Some of them are not entertaining MOUs. Some of them are not even entertaining a presentation from the MVCA. So just to be very clear, but to your point, I think, yes, depending on what council chooses, those costs could potentially increase if there's not enough partners, and or maybe the program or service isn't delivered at the same level that it is today. So again, the NVCA will have to assess that and determine if they don't have enough partners signing on, can they actually continue to deliver some of these programs and services?
Follow on, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So in addition to that, CAO Schmidt, that's terrifying, right? To think that that could be our bill or a version of it. What is our protections in place? So if we were to agree today to this 26,000 or maybe even portions of it, as was mentioned, because again, I absolutely agree we should be supporting the festival at Fort Willow 100%. But If that is the case and we sign on and others do not, are we then responsible for that portion? Or does the NVCA come back to us and say, this is your portion and we have a discussion back at this table? Because personally, I can't support an option 2 or 3 unless we have a specific dollar amount associated today.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Councillor Garwood. So Councillor Garwood, my understanding is tonight, essentially council is making a decision whether you wish to continue with the current level of service that's being provided today, which includes these category 3 services for this amount of money. If you decide that you only want to pursue category 1 and which are mandated, and you want to have a conversation with the MVCA only with regards to the festival of Fort Willow, if you will, that would be direction that would need to be provided to staff. Staff would go back to the MVCA and have a conversation with them, determine what the cost apportionment agreement would look like. We would have to present that to council for your approval. So to me, you're not, if you walk that path, you're not committing to all of these category 3 programs of service tonight. You would just be committing to the category 1, which you're mandated to for.
Follow on.
Thank you for the leeway, Mayor Coughlin. I won't put anything on the floor right now because I want others to be able to speak as well, but that's the direction that I'd like to see us go in this evening, is again, not committing ourselves to a potential large dollar amount, ensuring that we're in conversations with the MVCA in regards to the festival at Fort Willow, but I don't personally would support signing on to any of the other options.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just, not to throw a wrench into things, I'm looking further down the agenda and wondering how, if that notice of motion were to go through regarding the NVCA and the area that they're responsible for, if it were to be reduced, the memorandum of understanding, maybe we should wait to see if that goes through. I'm wondering if it might be better to just defer this and see what happens there, because that would change the outcome of everything if we were to realign the lines, would it not?
Before I do go to CEO Schmidt, it would change the levy that we are charged, because there would be fewer properties that are assessed with the NVCA. It wouldn't change, and therefore it would change it. Unfortunately, when the NVCA does present their options to us, they put it in a per resident and per capita formula, not based on their residential, which is how they calculate their levy. So for us to try and guess what that would be quite difficult, because they don't provide us with one form of budgeting. So I'll speak to that at a later date. While I have the mic here, the Festival of Fort Willow, CEO Schmidt, and maybe through to Manager Dean, the NVCA, do they put that on, or does another organization put it on, but at their property supported by? Thank you, Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself into the rest of council. So the Festival of Fort Willow is put on at the property, which is governed by the NVCA, and the property itself is taken care of by the NVCA. The festival is in partnership with the township, the Friends of Fort Willow, usually a few other organizations that come on to support the event, and the NVCA themselves. So it is a partnership between multiple organizations. There is in-kind support from the township. There is also monetary support from the township, and same on the NVCA side. We have been successful between our township and between NVCA in the past for grants, sometimes for the festival, but it is a partnership event.
Thank you. Councillor Alexander.
Manager Dean, if you can just stay, because I would like to ask another further to Mayor Coughlin's question. So I understand the idea of potentially, if we could take it over versus paying the NVCA the amount to do it, which is kind of, I feel like, the discussion we're in right now. But who leads the organization of that event? Because if we are a partner but are not leading, we are then potentially in a position where it's going to come back that, yes, the township can lead it, but that is going to then require another staff member. So it's not simply in kind time that we have right now, but would then require further monetary on the township. So just so we understand what we're comparing.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Thank you, Council Alexander, for the question. So the NVCA truly does take the lead on that event currently. We do partake in the meetings, we partake in the day, but they do, right now, they would have a higher percentage of the actual planning of that event.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Fisher, and my apologies for skipping over.
Actually, I was just going to say previously, I agree with Councillor Garwood. I think to tie our hands to something with an unknown price tag into the future is it's a bit of a gamble, and frankly, it is a sizable amount of money, right, to be gambling with. So I just wanted to concur with him. I don't like signing on to something that's that vague.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I'd like to take the opportunity, if I could then, to direct staff, if we can, to go back and have a conversation about the Festival of Fort Willow, what the cost would look like back to the township, to make sure that the festival does continue in the same sort of successful way that it has all along. It provides a tremendous amount of education and experience to young children, and I really hate for that to be affected.
Thank you. Councillor Garwood? Oh. Councillor Garwood seconding the amendment there. Yep. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to council. There are some nuances with how this would move forward. Currently, the motion before council is for the report to be received and that council direct the mayor and clerk to execute the required agreements for a category 2 or 3 program to the township. From my understanding and of the discussion, council is not in favor of the category 2 or 3 agreements. However, would like to continue with the NVCA. My recommendation for the procedure for this would be voting on the main motion and then immediately tabling a subsequent motion regarding the festival specifically. That way it is clear direction that category 2 or 3 is not desired by council and it doesn't get muddied by a subsequent amendment to speak about the festival.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So this time, council, we would be voting on the main motion, and a vote against this would defeat it, and we would not be engaging in a memorandum of understanding. And subsequently, we will put forward the motion to address the Festival of Fort Willow. So I did have it moved and seconded. Oh, I have CO Schmidt.
Sorry, Mayor Coughlin, can you maybe just repeat that one more time?
Right. Sure can. So before us is the memorandum of understanding from the NVCA. I will be calling the vote on that. If it is defeated, there is no memorandum of understanding of any kind with the NVCA. Subsequent to that vote, we will be putting on the floor, we can waive the procedural bylaw to ensure that we have the Festival of Fort Willow dealt with. So all those in favor of the category 2 and 3 MOU? All those opposed? And that has carried. And at this time, I will waive our procedural bylaw and we will. Oh, it's the same topic. So we have a motion put forward by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Garwood, and Clerk Ainsworth, I will ask you to read that.
Thank you. And please let me know if you would like any amendments or changes to this. That council hereby directs staff to continue discussions with the NVCA regarding the township's continued support of the festival at Fort Willow and report back on costing, in-kind contributions, and other. My apologies, I was halfway done drafting this and other pertinent information to ensuring that the festival continues.
Sound good? It's been read. Council, all those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. Sorry, at this time, we have a request from Deputy Cabral to pull 9.8, which has already been approved. So if we wanted to go back and speak to it, we could speak to it, but the direction has already been given. It would be a reconsideration at this time. Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. On looking at this, 9.7 and 9.8 are intertwined, if I'm not mistaken. And I would ask that 9.8 be reconsidered in the interim so that we can discuss 9.7. That will distinctly have a bearing on 9.8.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna move on to 9.4 at this time. Just continue down and then we can deal with 9.8 when we're dealing with 9.7. So 9.4, we have our school bursary program policy. And I have that 9.4, so moved by Counselor Moore and seconded by Deputy Cabral, that the report from the manager of legislative services / clerk regarding the school bursary program policy dated October 18th be received, and that council hereby approves the school bursary program policy. And at this time, I can open it up for comment. Counselor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I wanted to say thank you so much to Clerk Ainsworth for developing the policy. I really do appreciate it. And I was excited to see it come on the agenda. And just to reiterate that it's $100 per elementary school at graduation time for the school to determine what the academic award will look like, or which person will be the recipient of the award, and to continue with the $500 to the Elmvale District High School for the same idea. The school will determine how to spread that out. I just wanted really to just express that it's not a commencement celebration in the way that I interpreted that. So the $500 is not to be used for the graduation celebration, which is how I read it. And just to say that it is truly meant for academic awards. Thank you.
Further comment on the program? I thought after reading it, I thought it would be, I love that we're adding to the celebrations and we get to be part of it. I thought it would be great to have the $100 be specific to a youth leader or a youth development or something that shows the leadership skills, which is what we on council try to do or hopefully do in our communities. And I think that acknowledging the civics portion and I guess being in the classrooms again today, it's something that, developing young leaders is I think something very important. And I didn't know if council would be amenable to having that $100 go to a student chosen by the school, but for their leadership, the qualities within the community. We can leave it. I don't care. It's going to them. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. I just thought that it would be, those awards don't often, it's usually the kids that are really smart in math, science, and technology and athletics. And sometimes there are some really great leaders. And I think that developing leadership. So I don't know if there's an appetite to have it be more specific. No? Okay. And so we have that before us, all those in favor as the report's read, and that is carried. We are now moving on to, we have 9.7 and 9.8. So I have 9.7 first. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it here. One second, Deputy Cabral. May I have a mover and seconder for the report regarding the voluntary community contribution agreement for Midhurst Heights. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the voluntary community contribution agreement Midhurst Heights dated October 18th, 2023 be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement attached in Appendix A. Deputy Cabral.
Well, thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I do apologize. 9.7 does tie in with 9.8 directly. I don't know how to phrase this because there's certain things I'm not at liberty to say. However, I am very much struggling with this. And as much as I would like to see the township benefit from it, I'm struggling with it in the spirit of transparency and accountability. And I do have a motion that Clerk Ainsworth has helped draft up that will likely, if it passes, alleviate my concerns and allow me to move forward on it. But presently, I would not be able to support this motion in its present form. And it would basically take an amendment to it in order for me to be able to do so. And as this ties in directly with 9.8, depending on how this particular 9.7 goes, I would ask that 9.8, I will be asking for reconsideration on that one. I don't know whether it's appropriate now to at least have Clerk Ainsworth try and provide the amendment in an appropriate wording. I've written something down, but I suspect yours will be much better. Okay, basically what my amendment would be is, I'm not able to support it. I would ask that it be deferred and that staff be directed to prepare a report that includes waiving confidentiality so that all negotiations regarding this matter may be included and brought back before council for an informed and transparent vote.
Clerk Ainsworth has just asked for a minute here, council. If we wanted to take a quick break while she does that, we can do so. So we'll be right back. Council, we are reconvened. So we do have a amendment put forward by Deputy Cabral, and I will ask that our clerk reread the amendment, please.
Thank you. It would be a referral, and it would read that the motion now before council be referred to staff to update the report and waive confidentiality to include all negotiations regarding this matter to be included and brought back before council in open session, ensuring full transparency of the matter.
And that will include 9.8 then, or we'd have to deal with that one separately after. Okay, thank you. I need a seconder for that first, please. You can't second your own. Councillor Alexander. And I'm going to go to question for Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, then to Deputy Mayor Cabral, or actually CAO Schmidt. Would this then affect the subdivision's ability to move forward with this, which is what their plan is? Where does that leave? Does that leave us in jeopardy of some sort?
CAO Schmidt.
Through you, Mayor Cogan, to Councillor Moore. My understanding, Councillor Moore, is that if council chooses to refer this, essentially, the contribution is in jeopardy. In the sense of, I don't believe that the contribution will be provided if it's about timing, really, is what it comes down to. And the idea is that the developer, requested this, and council's had a discussion, and we're here tonight to have council consider what was discussed in the direction that was previously provided by council.
I have Councillor Alexander.
Thank you. Is there any way, CAO Schmidt, that the referral request can be expedited? In that I believe what the request is a fairly simple outline of events that have occurred and potentially be brought back to council earlier for a special meeting. So we aren't necessarily foregoing, but we are still being able to provide full transparency.
CAO Schmidt.
Through Mayor Coggan to Councillor Alexander. Councillor Alexander, the request from the developer was to have the agreement on tonight's agenda. So it would have to be a conversation with the developer to determine whether or not they're still willing to entertain this.
Councillor Thompson.
I'd just like to go on record, say that I'm not in favor of revisiting this. I think it's, we should move forward to this. I think it'd be good for our township, and I think we've already had a lively discussion about it.
I have Councillor Garwood and then Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Of course, we never want to walk away from any sort of contribution, especially one this size. But again, in this case, I do agree with the deputy mayor in regards to the transparency piece being open and public. Would it be possible, understanding that the party in question is expecting that we move forward, that an amendment be brought forward to still have the report come back? So the events in question are outlined and detailed in the public, but we still move forward tonight with the respective timeline. I'm not saying we have to do so, Deputy Mayor Cabral. I'm just understanding that from what I'm hearing from the CAO is that the developer might walk away here, and we don't want that to be gone. So do we still, win-win? Do we receive the contribution for our community, be transparent and open, and have the report come forward in the future, i.e. the next meeting, on the basis that that report exists and does come forward, and we as a council support what's in front of us? Just a thought.
And I don't have any. Fisher.
There, maybe just to piggyback on what Councillor Garwood said, I don't want to tie the hands of the developer. As I've said to you before, I visited the site. I think their asks of moving ahead with some projects that are on their land are, I would say I fully support them, regardless of the contribution. I don't think it's a big ask. I don't want to tie the hands of the developer and add extra time. I know time is money in their business, in anyone's business. But I would like to see more transparency as it comes to the contribution. So whatever we come up with, I think I would like it to be along those lines. I think it's not right to just tie up their business and what they're doing. But at the same time, I do represent a community, and I think that transparency is something I would like to have out there. So yeah, I do agree with Councillor Garwood.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. My concerns are with the accountability and transparency that unfortunately, due to confidentiality, I'm not allowed to speak to. And that's why I find myself in this dilemma. I mean, we could certainly move forward if that's the appetite that council has. I still have my reservations, but I would suggest that the amendment be changed so that a report still waiving confidentiality to show exactly how the voluntary contribution came about would still be forthcoming to council in an open session so that accountability and transparency does in fact exist.
I don't see a problem. I myself don't see a problem with that. I would like to see that after every single closed session. If we could, once decisions are made. But yeah, if we could, so there is an amendment on the floor. Deputy Cabral, if you would choose to remove the amendment, and it would just be simply that a report from the CAO come after. CEO Schmidt?
Before it was done.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just to all members of council, for those that may not be aware, this does kind of mimic, if you will, other agreements that have happened in this area with other developers, whereby discussions have happened in a closed environment and a report of similar nature has come as you see this evening. So the steps are somewhat similar.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm happy to revise my amendment to have that report come back. And in addition to that, I would actually like to see it come back at the next meeting, outlining waiving confidentiality and outlining the negotiations that took place where this voluntary contribution came about. I'm struggling with it. It's two different pieces. There's a connection, and that connection is missing. That's what's causing me the problem.
That's completely understood. Quick Ainsworth?
Thank you. So that would be, Deputy Mayor, you withdrawing your referral and then tabling an amendment so that the main motion would still stay intact with the addition of the amendment reading that an information report come forward at the next regular meeting to include all negotiations regarding this matter, ensuring full transparency of the matter, understanding that council waives its confidentiality.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher?
So just for my own clarity, the developer would be able to move ahead with what they're proposing, but we would be basically informed of exactly how the negotiations took place, and that would be dealt with later on.
So we do have the amendment on the floor. I need it seconded. Councillor Garwood? All those in favor of the amendment? And thank you. I will return back to the main motion. That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding voluntary community contribution agreement Midhurst Heights dated October 18th, 2023 be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute an agreement as attached in Appendix A as amended. All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, 9.8 was subsequently pulled, but I believe that this is going to deal with both of those at the time. I think we'll leave that one where it is. Moving on to now our information reports. May I have a mover and seconder to get the information reports on the floor? I have Councillors Thompson and Moore. The reports listed herein be received for information. Our bylaw service monthly activity report from September of 2023, building service monthly activity report from September of 2023, Bill 23 changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, 4 ASE, so it's our automated speed enforcement, and 5 our tree removal update for the Midhurst Union, the cemetery. Are any of these to be pulled for redirection? Councillor Garwood?
Number 3, please. And just a comment, not redirection.
Councillor Moore?
Number 4.
Comment on number 3, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a comment specifically related to the changes to the Ontario Heritage Act. As council's representative with the Cultural and Heritage Committee, we've been spending a lot of time speaking about the Heritage Act and the changes that are coming with Bill 23. So I just wanted to provide a bit of a overview of those changes and the committee's current stance and desire. First off, I'd like to thank Deputy Clerk Marshall for an excellent report and for being a great resource to our committee. So Bill 23 included amendments to the Ontario Heritage Act, including a 2-year time limit for listed properties, so not designated properties of cultural heritage value or interest to remain on the municipal heritage registers. If not formally registered, these properties would fall off the registry as of January 1st, 2025, and cannot be put back on the registry for another 5 years. The township currently has 38 listed properties that are not designated that are currently sitting on that heritage heritage registry. And the Cultural and Heritage Advisory Committee has expressed a desire to continue to prioritize the listed properties of those 38 and determine if there's any interest in pursuing further designation, while highlighting the fact that the committee at this time, again, as it's up to council, but the committee has no desire to force designation of those properties, those 38 properties. We're looking to reach out and connect with our residents and those 38 properties, speak about the benefits related to the registry and the cultural importance within the municipality. That's all.
Thank you. So at this time, I have item number 4 pulled. I'm not seeing any others. Oh, yes. Perfect. I'm not seeing any others to be pulled. So we are now approving 1, 2, 3, and 5. All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move back to our second. I have moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Fisher, and we can open for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Nice to see you. How do I say your last name? Is it Eberhard? Eberhard, sorry, thank you. Mr. Eberhard, I just had some questions about the report. When you were looking at the automated speed enforcement cameras, I remember in our discussions, we were to have 1 for each ward minimum. Is that, I didn't see that number in here for 5. I did see the community safety zones, I think that you were considering. The designation for the community safety zones were a little confusing for me. So I wanted to know, the one area of concern for me is Sunnydale Road in Center Vespra. And so when we talked about this before, that is the area that needs more enforcement. I in fact saw the OPP there today. But when you would talk about community safety zones, you did mention 1 street start, 1 street end. And so can that area be considered a community safety zone? And can we put the speed cameras in that area?
I'm going to get it wrong too. So one more time. Thank you, Mr. Eberhard. Got it.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to Councillor Moore. The ASE can be installed in community safety zones or within school zones. The community safety zones I've outlined here are the current community safety zones that we have. I've kind of put in a bit of context on how council or what the parameters around or designating an area as a community safety zone. The idea is not for the entire township to be a community safety zone, but where the vulnerable areas are or the high trafficked and school zones or pedestrian crossings in that sort of area would be. And that's kind of the idea on where we would install the automated speed enforcement. To your point regarding how many cameras, I've reached out to a few different vendors. The costing depends on how many cameras. We can move them around. They're not permanently fixed. So they could be in one location for 3 months, move to another location for another 3 months, as appropriate as we have the designation, we have the signage and everything else in place.
Follow on.
So just to be clear, then, if I'm looking at Center Vespra, how do you decide if it's east or west? So because it's a bit of a long stretch. So say it's a 1 kilometer stretch. Do you put the camera at the east end for 3 months and then move it to the west end? How does this work? Or does the one camera catch both ways? Sorry,
Mr. Eberhard?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to Councillor Moore. Yes, the camera would catch both incoming and outgoing directions. Where we position them would be strategic on where we think the highest maybe speeding location is within that community safety zone or within that school zone. Most likely a straightaway and not on a ramp, on a bend or on a curve or anything like that. So we would use our discretion on where we would put them within the community safety zone.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to actually, Mr. Eberhard, can you speak to Mr. Eberhard, the Sunnydale Road specifically being a county road and whether or not we would have any jurisdiction on that piece as to being able to install automated speed enforcement?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to CEO Schmidt, on county roads or on MTO roads, no, that would be outside of our jurisdiction. So that would be under either the county or the MTO. We could work with them to bring it to their attention on potential areas that we thought, but it would be under their discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher and Alexander.
To Dan. Hey, Dan. Two questions. One, with community safety zones, as time goes on, we can designate other roads as community safety zones, yes?
Mr. Eberhard?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to Councillor Fisher. That's correct. Through a bylaw, council may designate a certain segment of road as a community safety zone.
Thank you. And follow on. So when I read this report, it seemed to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there's basically three options in this report as I read it. One, and correct me if I'm wrong. One, we'd be waiting a number of years for. The other, we would essentially be buying the cameras and taking most of the revenue that came from the tickets. And a third, which I seem to like, we wouldn't be paying upfront for the cameras, right? But we'd be taking a lower percentage of the revenue that came off of them. Am I to interpret that correctly?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to Councillor Fisher. That's correct. There's a few different avenues that we could go down, depending if we want to purchase the cameras outright, if we want to rent the cameras, or if we want to have a revenue sharing with a different service provider that would lend us the cameras or install the cameras, maintain the cameras, extract the data, and that they would then take a percentage of the revenue. It would be based off of how frequent we want to move the cameras, how many cameras we expect to have. So that number would be negotiated with that service provider.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just kind of further to the county road or the discussion with what's under the MTO's jurisdiction, there is a note in here about Highway 93 and it being a community safety zone for part of it, but then it is also under the jurisdiction of the MTO. And I'm just trying to get my head around where exactly that falls.
Mr. Eberhard.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through yourself to Councillor Alexander. Penetanguishene Road, Highway 93, for segments is a county road. For other segments, it is an MTO jurisdiction road. That section through Hillsdale is a MTO jurisdiction. Therefore, as the road is under their jurisdiction, we would not be able to install our ASC along that segment of road.
Councillor Alexander.
Could we get around that because it's a school zone? No. Okay.
That's some heads shaking there. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just on that point, through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Mr. Eberhard. The roads in Elmville, you've got County Road 27 and County Road 92. In town, they fall under municipal jurisdiction though. Okay, so there are areas where some people might still consider them county roads, but really we would be in a position to put cameras in those particular locations. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. So at this time, is there direction that's looking to be provided? Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment that we move ahead with the option that sees us get the cameras, not pay for them, and take a lower percentage of the revenue. My rationale behind that, I don't think we got into this to be get revenue off of cameras. We were really just trying to improve safety in the community. And I think that's the most cost effective way to go about it.
And a seconder for that, please. Councillor Thompson or everyone. And I'm gonna have Clerk Ainsworth read option number 3 here.
Thank you. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows to add. And that council directs that planning for automated speed enforcement be commenced, directing staff to further investigate and report back on a revenue sharing model.
That's been read. Any other questions, council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to our, back to the main motion.
Thank you. The main motion as amended would read that the report item listed herein be received as information. Number 4, AFD automated speed enforcement, and that council direct that planning for automated speed enforcement be commenced, directing staff to further investigate and report back on a revenue sharing model.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move on to our verbal reports. We have our development update first. CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coggan. Through you to members of council, just a couple of quick updates. So on the neighborhood 1, which is on the west side of Bayfield, Midhurst Valley area, within the Thompson lands that are within that development, currently topsoil stripping is happening as well as earthworks. Some of the material is actually being moved offsite to our utility campus located at Snow Valley in Wilson. And that's to help facilitate the construction of the ultimate wastewater treatment plant. The roundabout, which is the county project at Wilson and Carson and Seaton. Seaton and Carson has now been open east-west. The roundabout is scheduled to be completed by the end of November with some minor, I guess, painting and surface works that are going to need to be completed next year. If we switch over to neighborhood 2, kind of on the east side, Midhurst Heights, the only real update I have this evening is that we are still working with them to schedule a public information center, hopefully later this fall, which will provide the community and members of council with some information as it relates to their external services that are being proposed in the community of Midhurst and the potential impacts. So that's what I have for you this evening.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Moving on for our county update, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Don't have a whole lot for you on the county. It was a fairly light agenda and I apologize for that. But I would like to point out that Deputy Warden Coughlin chaired the meeting and she did an absolutely fantastic job. So kudos to her.
Thank you. It was not nerve-wracking at all being up there with more mics. There is actually a panic button, and I kid you not, it is labeled panic, and it's a button that lets the people outside know that we need to panic. So once I saw that, I started shaking. Municipal updates, members of council. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I never have municipal updates, but I do want to share that I did the roundabout this past weekend. And I went around and around and around because it was so exciting that it was finally open. And I've had probably no less than a dozen comments about how thankful people are. And that, of course, that Carson and Seaton is open. And I'm just hoping that people take care because there's some confusion still about what lane they need to be in. So hopefully the signs go up quickly, but I would just caution people to please be careful.
And maybe not go around and around and around, like not advocating it.
So thrilled.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
just teasing.
And it's big, like it is wide. So
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to provide an update that the Phelpston CRA will be hosting a kids Halloween fun run, piggybacking off of Ant Mills Bunny Hop, I think it was called. I'm close, right? So we are piggybacking off of that. I know we had reached out to get more information on it. It is this Sunday. The 2-kilometer run will begin at our rink building at 9:30 a.m. Dressing in your favorite Halloween costume. Feel free as adults to get dressed up and join us. And it should be a fun kind of Halloween celebration. So looking forward to it. And again, thank you to Ant Mills for kind of coming up with the idea. It's fun.
Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just two quick updates. The first one is a couple weeks ago on Thanksgiving weekend, the 2023 Elmville Fall Fair returned once again. There was an amazing showcase of stunning exhibits, fun activities, outstanding entertainment, making our legendary Fall Fair a huge success. It definitely takes a village to accomplish an event of that size. So I would like to personally thank all the volunteers, guests, sponsors, and exhibitors for making our fair possible. Also, a special thank you to Springwater staff. I can say over the days leading up to the fair, over the fair and then the cleanup, I think I spent about 80 hours inside that arena. And I can say every hour I was there, Springwater staff were absolutely incredible, went above and beyond to help guests and volunteers. So thank you to all staff, and thank you to all the residents and for council for coming on out. We think we had one of our best years yet. The rain held off for the most part. It wasn't very fun cleaning up on the Monday and the rain and the mud, but we did it, and another successful year. And I kid you not, we are already planning for next year. And then my second item is over this past Monday it was, the Elmville Minor Hockey Downtown Hockeyville Initiative launched, which is incredible. So if you're driving down Queen Street, you'll see all of the various different banners lining the street, honoring the history and heritage of Elmville Minor Hockey. Again, these flags are celebrating players and coaches and builders, lining our downtown, also the windows of local businesses as well. So it's really neat to see that happening. They'll be up there till the end of the month when they come down, and then the Remembrance Day banners will go on up. So I think these banners have become a really neat tradition in the Elmville community. People love to see them line the streets. On Monday night, it was incredible. Probably 50 plus people showed up to do a street walk and look at the banners, and seeing all of these folks taking their picture with their picture up on the banner. It was pretty neat to witness. Little hockey community does a lot. So congratulations to EMHA.
Any more updates? I just wanted to share with you, I was invited by trustee Grummett to go to Hillsdale School this morning and Forest Hill this afternoon. And I wanted to let you know that while I was in the school for Forest Hill, the kids usually ask questions about municipal government, which is about a civics, as grade 5, 6 do civics. I enjoy it. Their questions are always great. This young man came to me with his laptop and informed me that he had a proposal for us. And I said that I would bring it to our council this evening. So good afternoon, Mayor, Miss Ironside, and classmates. My name is Nathan Frankham. I would today like to speak with you about my dream for an all-wheels park here in Midhurst. For those that do not know, an all-wheels park is one that accommodates any type of sport on wheels. This includes skateboards, scooters, bikes, wheelchairs, and anything into the unknown. We unfortunately do not have anything like this in our community now. I remember a day when a friend and my dad went to a local park here in Barrie. So I had to explain to him that we're in Springwater, so we got through that part. But anyway, he was excited for the day out until I'm going to skip all this part. He goes on to tell us that the skateboarding is more than just a pastime. It is an activity that promotes physical health, mental well-being, and a community spirit. And according to the Canadian Fitness and Lifestyle Research Institute, 70% of children ages 5 to 19 years are not meeting their recommended guidelines in physical activity at least once per day, per week. By building a new skate park here in Midhurst, we could provide an accessible venue that encourages active living among youth, and as well as addressing the homeless issues that I skipped over in the first part. We urge you and the relevant authorities in Midhurst to take immediate action on this matter. A new skate park will not only benefit our skateboarders like us, but also contribute positively towards the community development as well as the public health initiatives. Please sign this petition if you believe in creating a safer recreational spaces for everyone in our community. So thank you very much. And the teacher has informed that they will be replaying this portion back on their YouTube. So I said that I would have our manager of recreation explain to our grade 5-6 classroom and any residents who are asking how to become part of our recreation master plan for input.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin and Council, and thank you, Nathan, for your great letter to our councillors as well as our township. So we are currently undergoing a Parks and Rec Master Plan update that will guide the next 10 years of strategic planning for parks, recreation, and facilities in the township. So we are in the new year. There will be a second round of engagements happening where the draft recommendations from the survey that went out earlier this year will be presented to council as well as residents, and they will have the opportunity to read the draft recommendations and make comment on them. So there was some questions around what amenities, park amenities and recreation residents would like to see upgraded, improved, or added to the township. So but potentially a skate park or an all-wheels park may be mentioned, but also we would encourage all youth, all ages in the township to participate in our second round of community engagement when the draft recommendations come out early in the new year.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. With any, no, we will now move on to our notices of motion. Thank you, Manager Dean. We have a notice of motion moved by Councillor Garwood and seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, and bear with me as I read this motion. It's quite long. Recommendation, whereas iCandy Ads delegated to council and at its meeting on December 1st, 2022, requesting an exemption from the sign bylaw to install a digital billboard at 74 Queen Street South, which is the site of a future commercial establishment currently being constructed. And whereas the business community with Elmvale can benefit from this initiative, and some local businesses have expressed the need for this type of project. And whereas staff are unable to issue a sign permit as the township's policies require signage be tied to a permitted use on the property, and also a standalone billboard is not permitted. Be it therefore resolved that council hereby approves an exemption to the sign bylaw for iCandy Ads with the following conditions. 1, that the sign be permitted as digital only on the side facing south. The north side of the sign shall be static. 2, that the sign shall be no longer than 9 feet tall by 18 feet wide on the digital side and 10 feet tall by 20 feet wide on the static side. 3, that the digital side of the sign be turned off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. daily. 4, that the sign meet the required setbacks to accommodate sightline triangles to the satisfaction of township staff. 5, that inappropriate advertising not be permitted, such as vulgar words or images or messaging that would not be considered suitable for children. 6, that the exemption is not transferable and only applies while iCandy Ads is the owner of the sign. 7, that iCandy Ads shall be responsible for adhering to all County of Simcoe bylaws and provincial legislation, such as the building code. 8, that iCandy Ads shall pay the appropriate sign permit fee. 9, that any contraventions of these conditions must be rectified within 10 calendar days. If not rectified, the township will provide notice to iCandy Ads that the sign is to be removed and the exemption revoked. May I speak to this? Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So specifically, again, I understand there's been a few questions related to this motion and maybe some apprehension, which I completely understand. I'm going to focus on this with the local business community in mind. At a recent BIA meeting this past summer, the owner of this proposed billboard, or the ad company, came forward and presented to our BIA. Once this presentation was provided, the BIA expressed interest in the proposal, expressing the opportunity to advertise within our local community while at a affordable rate. What I mean by that is, if we think of a static billboard, right, one that we pass often, we know that there is one business located on that billboard for a month's time, and that might be X price. where on a digital billboard on one side facing south outside of the community, not facing in, the billboard would permit multiple advertisers throughout that month period, making it more affordable for our local mom and pop operations to be able to advertise. Again, I am here with as a representative of the BIA and as our council rep sitting on the BIA, advocating for this group and our local business community. Understanding that this is an exemption, this is out of the norm. Absolutely it is. That's why we associated 10 different conditions assigned, and that's why it was a long motion. I can respect that there might be concern, but in this light and this specific discussion, I'm here with the BIA's endorsement of this item. Should it be successful? Should it not be successful? Again, that's absolutely understandable, but we thought it belonged to have a discussion here at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garwood. Councillor Thompson?
Have all of these conditions been presented to the eye candy people, and have they agreed to them?
Councillor Garwood?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Thompson. Yes, I have had many conversations with Mr. Snaper, who owns Eye Candy Ads, who presented to us last year. The motion, he has reviewed the motion prior to, when the agenda came out, and is agreeable amongst these items listed here. I can also advise that these conditions have been well discussed with both the clerk's department and other staff here at the township.
Councillor Thompson?
Just to follow on, in here it refers to the appropriate sign permit fee. What is that? And is it an annual fee or is it a one-time fee?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, I will have to look up the exact fee, but there within our sign permit bylaw, there is a fee established for specific classes of signs. So this condition is meant to ensure that permit fee would be applied to this. I will look it up and advise council in just a moment.
Councillor Fisher?
So I guess my question through you to Councillor Garwood, it's a sizable sign. I've seen these digital signs on my way up north. They really do glow. They really are, they're quite prominent, and I've seen them in rural areas actually going up north. But I guess, do you feel something that large glowing on the edge of town? I guess I'd say to you this: I see Elmvale when I'm there. In a positive light, I see it as sort of a quaint rural town. I'm wondering, and when I read this, does this fit in with the sort of I would say that quaint rural town image? Is that really? Do you see it fitting in? I have my apprehensions about it.
Councillor Garwood?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Fisher, completely. And I had the same apprehensions when we sat here a year ago. I believe I was one of, or maybe the only individual who commented on the presentation stating that I had apprehensions in regards to a sign being there. There's a proposed development close to that location. And that is why the idea was proposed to only have the sign on one, the digital side on one sign, and secondary to that, to follow the same rules that we have outlined for our Welcome to Elmvale digital sign. The sign does now turn off at 11 p.m. and resumes operation at 6 a.m. This sign would operate in the same fashion of that. To your point specifically, does the sign fit in with the overall characteristics of the community? You know what? I agree with you, Councillor Fisher. I see our community as a small, quaint town, while also I think in the last year I've seen 4 digital signs pop up in Elmvale at other business locations, smaller in nature, some at a church, some at a auto body repair shop. So they are popping up. They're not on municipal properties specifically, understanding this isn't either. But when I look at this and why I'm okay to be here today to present it is specifically because it is located on a commercial property, understanding that commercial property is right on the edge of our community. But if this was in the middle of a farmer's field or in the middle of town, of course, I would not be bringing it forward. this sign is something that the owner of the developed property is eager about and is supportive of. And so is the individual that has brought this to our attention. So I can absolutely appreciate your apprehension. I'm going to be honest with you. I've had the same discussions with Mr. Snaper in regards to how this sign would fit into our community. If council wished to proceed but make amendments to what is here, I'm absolutely open to that. If that meant removing the digital portion and having a static sign, again, it doesn't provide the same benefits to our local community, businesses who might not be able to spend X amount on a static sign for 1 month. Understanding that Mr. Snaper and his eye candy ads business also has other fun activities like, children's birthdays and whatnot that get posted up on the sign, which can be fun for community members. But again, I'm not here to belabor this by any means. If it's not council's desire, I completely respect that. But I believed it was my responsibility to bring it forward.
Thank you. I have Counselor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So a couple of things. I fully understand the local businesses wanting this opportunity and advocating for it. And I think it's great that you're here advocating for them. I do share some of both of your shared concerns in when I look at Elmville and what I see. I also, when I was thinking about it, because I've thought about it quite a bit, when I took a step back further, and we've had many discussions around this table and with staff about the idea of an economic development officer. And for me, it's about bringing business in, but it's also about building what Springwater is. So we don't just become Whitby or Mississauga that where we just keep growing in their strip malls. And so that's a concern I have with kind of going down this road, because I personally don't feel like it fits into the Elmville, but that's just my personal opinion. My other worry is I already, not probably on a weekly, maybe not on a weekly, but quite often get complaints just about regular billboards across the township from people who don't like them in the farmer's field or on the trailers or feel like people are getting around. So I worry something of this nature is just going to snowball those complaints. So definitely understand why you're bringing it forward, just kind of on the fence on, those are what I'm trying to come up with a decision, if you will.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I appreciate the opportunity. I did recall the presentation last time. I think it is out of character with Elmvale. If we're going to talk about coming into Springwater from the Barrie side, and we're talking about a gateway entry, that's the gateway for everybody coming into Elmvale. And I think what we really have here is a gentleman who's had an opportunity to engage with someone who happens to be building a building in Elmvale, and he's prepared to try and capitalize on it by asking for an exemption. I certainly don't fault Councillor Garwood for bringing it forward. I'd much rather see the BIA partner with some of the other folks in town who have the smaller signs, because the BIA at one time did want to do their own. It didn't happen. We put ours up. But it's out of character for the town. I mean, that's the first thing you're going to see. This thing is literally a monster. Like, we're talking, I know that in here it says no larger than that, but I can't envision them putting in anything that's going to be any smaller. They're going to go to the exact max. And it is an exemption. However, turning it off at 11 o'clock really isn't going to alleviate the issues when at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on December the 21st, it's already nighttime. Also, you have to consider the folks in there and what the residents of Elmville are going to think too. This is an exemption. It's not, you're allowed to put in a digital sign and, go with it. He's asking for an exemption because he happens to have a location that will facilitate him putting in a sign. And to be quite frank, he's done everything he can to try and promote it and try and make it more palatable to us for it to go in there, even agreeing to some of these conditions, which half of them he'd have to agree to anyway. I just can't support it. I didn't support it then. I will be honest. I received a couple of calls from them, and as reluctant as maybe it was to say no, I did not think it was keeping in character with Elmvale. There's there's no going back once it goes in there. And, it'll be eye candy ads that'll run it, but there's nothing to say that eye candy ads isn't going to be sold to another company. Therefore, eye candy ads still owns it. And next thing you know, there's other things going on there. So as much as I feel for the gentleman, I know he's got signs in other location, but I also will indicate that from the sounds of the presentation, they were all done by exemption. So it's not like our municipality not having them is unusual. It sounds to me like the municipalities that do have them are the unusual ones. And to be honest, I could see it better off like the one on Bayfield Street coming down to Carson, where it really literally is in the middle of nowhere. And you come over the hill there and it lights up the whole area. So I really don't see it as being in character with Elmvale. I actually would see it better out in the farmer's field. And then I'm hearing from other members of council who go, farmers don't want it there. So if the farmers don't want it, I can't imagine that the residents of Elmvale will either. So unfortunately, hate to say it, much as I wish the BIA had to maybe move forward with their own little project, I won't be able to support this going forward.
I have Clerk Ainsworth with the answer to Councillor Fisher or Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. The sign permit fee for a permanent sign is $75. However, if a sign requires a building permit, the building permit fees would apply. And in those instances, we actually exempt the sign permit fee. So with this, whatever the building permit fee would be for it would be what would be applicable.
Thank you, Council. And after hearing members of council and their concerns. Yeah, Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, I'll make it brief. I won't be supporting it for the aforementioned things, but one thing I wanted to say to Councillor Garwood, being that you're on the BIA, I don't want the BIA to feel discouraged like we didn't listen to them. I actually think that it would potentially, that look could potentially hurt what, when I was in Elmvale for the fair the other day, I thought, it's a very quaint town. You could smell the restaurant as I walked past there. That was great. I'll be going back. That's right. I mean, but I think the charm and probably where Elmvale and the BIA should focus is capitalizing on that sort of quaint small town feel. I think this actually would work against them. But if you could express that to them, I don't want them to think that council just shot them down. I think quite honestly, what they need to capitalize on as a BIA is that image, that quaint hometown image, and a sign like this really, I don't think it really achieves that. So if you could express that to them, so they don't just think we're saying no.
Like 1 minute. Seconds.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And I appreciate everyone's concerns. And Councillor Fisher, I agree with you, right? I think while it was something that the BIA desired, of course, it was my choosing to bring it forward, and that is why it's on the agenda tonight. I think the BIA has a lot going for it right now. We are in a rebuilding of sorts where we're trying to gather folks and bring folks in and figure out what's next. So again, I appreciate everyone's thoughts here. I don't think that this discourages anything, even if it doesn't move forward. And I definitely can see its benefits, but I can see its shortfalls as well. So again, I appreciate everyone's conversation tonight and your candor.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Garwood. Thank you for bringing it forward. So we do have the motion, and I will not ask Councillor Garwood to read that again, but all those in favor? And opposed? And the motion has been defeated. And at this time, I will be passing the chair to Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Are there any other notices of motion?
Yes. So I have a motion, and I would just be looking for a seconder.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. My motion reads as, whereas in 1999, based upon the request from the Township of Springwater, the province of Ontario with endorsement by the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority expanded the NVCA jurisdiction to include the Wye River watershed, the Sturgeon River watershed, and any other watershed within the geographical limits of the township, in order that the Township of Springwater would in its entirety be placed under the NVCA jurisdiction. Be it therefore resolved that staff be directed to provide a report outlining the process for the township to request the NVCA jurisdiction be reversed to this jurisdiction prior to the 1999 decision. And that further the report to include alternate options for the township to conform with regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act. And in these areas of the township not covered by the NVCA if the jurisdiction is reverted.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Would you like to provide further comment on this?
I would, thank you. Over the past many years, I've heard from residents across the township with questions, and it didn't make sense to me when, generational farmers are saying, well, this never used to be NVCA. And I was like, well, how is that possible? So I appreciate the homework that staff has done to bring it forward that this was a decision of council in 1999 to open up what the NVCA's jurisdiction used to be to the entire applicable municipality. Understanding that we do have a relationship with the SSEA, and I have spoken about the overlap. I would like to try and find a way to revert this back to the way it was. I don't know the process. I'm sure we're gonna have to go to the minister and get that approval. So this is really just a report asking for what does this look like if the NVCA was to go back to what they were in 1999? What other options do we have? Who's available? So just asking for more information on this first step.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Any questions from council? Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cabral. More of a comment specifically. Again, I prefaced it a bit earlier on during our previous NVCA discussion, but I do have huge concern that we are paying $225, almost $26,000. It's a large amount of money based upon the fact that we are charging residents who live in homes that do not even live within the watershed technically that the NVCA is supposed to cover. Again, understanding that the NVCA charges on a per capita basis. I think about residents in my community and also in Councillor Alexander's community that, again, do not fall within that watershed, but are paying for these services. I fully support the SSCA, and I think that they do incredible work, understanding they're not a CA, but at the same time, completely agree with what Mayor Coughlin said in regards to duplication of services. So I completely support this motion.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through yourself to CAO Schmidt. Last term, we had some pretty frank discussions with the NVCA about our participation, and we did get advice, legal advice from our team plus the province about how we really had no choice. We needed to be paying what it was that they were asking. How will this change our legal obligations right now? And what is the 1998 sort of arrangement look like?
CO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Moore. So my understanding, Councillor Moore, is that back in the late 90s, the final decision was in 99, but through the late 90s, there was a discussion amongst Township Council at the time to essentially move in this direction. And so my understanding was a motion was approved by Township Council at the time. That then went to the NVCA for their consideration. And then the NVCA, I believe, approved that. And then it went to the province for their ultimate approval. So that's kind of the background that I'm aware of. How it would impact, I guess, if council is agreeable to this and provides direction, we would need to, I believe, reach back out to the province to see whether or not there's an ability to do this. If that happens, my understanding is that right now the levy is actually based on assessment, not per capita. It's assessment, just to be clear. So it's 100% of our assessment, whereas the NVCA, I believe, the watershed represents, I believe, around 84% of the municipality. So my understanding is if this was to be approved, then the levy would represent about 84% of the town. So there should be a reduction in that 225, if you will. That's my understanding, but I have had conversations with my colleagues in neighboring municipality who are also having this or have had part of this conversation. So looking if council's providing the direction tonight, I definitely will be reaching out to them to see where they are and whether they could help us as well.
Thank you. CO Schmidt, anybody else have a question on council? I just have one question. If it were to revert back to the previous lines, that would then mean that the SSEA would then become our I guess supplier of choice for any services in that area. And how is their levy determined?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cabral. The levy part, I'm gonna have to think through, and I'm not sure if Director Radigan maybe help me with that. I can't recall, to be honest with you. I believe it's, there's it's a joint municipal service board that's being created by Springwater as well as a number of other municipalities. I believe there's 10 or 9 or 10, I believe. And actually, Councillor Alexander may be able to help me as well. So they're not covered under the Conservation Authorities Act, so they wouldn't be permitted to provide the same level of service, if you will, as the MVCA today. So my understanding in the motion, it's something we would need to explore as to, where does the where does SCCA kind of cut off from their jurisdiction, and then whatever that gap is, whatever those programs or services that can't be covered, how does the township then procure those services potentially through another means? And I believe there are ways, but I think that's something that we would need to explore. So the levy part, I'm not sure, Director Radigan, if you can.
Thank you. Through you to members of council. I am looking up their 2024 currently, and they do not outline it clearly at the moment. I do believe they are coming forward for a presentation. And so we can provide that prior to the presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from members of council? Seeing none, I will ask for the vote. All those, do we need to read it over again? No. All those members in favor of the motion? Carried. I'll turn the chair back over to Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Deputy Cabral. Are there any further notices of motion for this evening? Any items for future consideration? We will now move on to the bylaws. May I have a mover and seconder for the approval of the bylaw, please? Councillors Thompson and Moore, that the bylaw listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk, that the 2023-099 corporate organizational structure. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? And I have a mover and seconder for the conformatory bylaw, please. Councillors Garwood and Alexander. That bylaw 2023-100 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on October 18th, 2023 listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? And that has carried. And a mover and seconder for adjournment, please. Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral. That the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does here adjourn at 8:38 p.m. to meet again in regular session on November 1st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you very much.